All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. Of course, I was just listening to the news, and they say what... Hinckley wants to get out. I mean, I guess that's what you do, right? You develop an obsession with Jodie Foster, and the only way you can impress her is to shoot the President of the United States. And I'm just not sure that Jodie Foster would have thought that was that impressive. But anyhow, I guess he wants to be known for something else, and I'm not sure what you would do that would eclipse that in your reputation. I mean, it's going to at least be a footnote, even if you come up with something that's going to eclipse it. I just don't know what that would be. 540-0580. Mark, you have a very interesting question. What is it? Mark.
Oh, hey. Basically, I have a friend who's actually a cop up in Susquehanna Township, and we kind of always get into bickerments and whatever about the law. But he informed me that they always video record their traffic stops or whatever the case may be.
Yes, in fact, the video you can see on my Facebook page of me stopped was by the Susquehanna Township Police.
Right. Anyways, and I was giving him a scenario. I was like, well, what if I whip out my GoPro and I put it in your face and record you? And he's like, well, I can tell you to stop recording it.
No, he can't.
He can't?
No, he can't.
Okay, so that's my question. And what's the case on videotaping police officers? I did a little research, and there's such thing as, some kid got nailed for wiretapping. I forget.
Yeah, and the kid that they arrested for wiretap eventually got the charges dropped and ended up suing him under 1983, and I think won a lot of money. And the answer is there's no expectation of privacy. And that's in Pennsylvania, if you want to video record and audio record somebody, because audio is the important portion, and they have a reasonable expectation of privacy, so it's a secret recording in my bedroom, then I'm in trouble. On the other hand, if I videotape a police officer who's already being videotaped or who is acting in the public, right, he can be seen and heard by anybody surrounding the area, he has no expectation of privacy. Okay. In fact, and you can tell your friend this, there's a case from the Commonwealth Court, right? The Wiretap Act says you can get somebody removed from their office if they violate the Wiretap Act. So a police officer himself filed a complaint against the chief of police of a township and wanted him removed from office because he had wiretapped them by turning on the speakerphones secretly turned on the speakerphone function in the break room so he could listen to what the officers were talking about. And the court said, hey, you're out loud talking at where you work. You don't have an expectation of privacy. Anybody standing around or walking through the area can hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't have to be removed because he hasn't violated the Wiretapping Act. So it's okay for a chief of police to secretly listen into the squad room and the break room. And that's not a wiretapping issue.
So, Mike, I mean, I'm not going to go out there and try to obviously videotape cops unless I need to. But at the same time, my question is, what do you do when they say turn it off?
Well, technically, here's the problem. When you have that recorder in your hand and you're recording the police officer directly, I mean, I suspect for officer safety reasons, he can ask you to remove the burning cigarette from your hand and probably the Go phone. So my recommendation is you set the recording device up innocuously and just don't alert him to its presence.
Gotcha. So you technically don't have to alert him at all then?
Right, no. No, and in fact, I wouldn't because that's what we posted something. There's one circulating on Facebook that I posted on my page where a police officer walks up and they keep trying to tell this guy that he has to answer their questions. And he keeps asking officers for their name and information. They give it to him, and eventually they let him go because they can't do anything. But he doesn't tell him he's recording them either.
Gotcha. So is this only a Pennsylvania law, or is this across the state?
Yeah, every state has different laws on wiretapping. But as a general rule, I think you're safe to tape police in all 50 states. But I could be I could be wrong in one of them.
Gotcha.
There is a guy out there, by the way, who I kind of admire. He has a car, and of course, it's kind of a beat-up car. And of course, he's also a minority. And he rides around in affluent neighborhoods with it. And he has it wired for sound and multiple visual images just to like bust police officers hassling him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess they need to kind of know their own. I guess sometimes they don't even know the law themselves, but interesting.
Oh, trust me on this one. I remember in Susquehanna Townships, the guys who wanted me to roll my windows up one time so they could test the light transmission to see if my tint was legal or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when I refused to roll the window up, about 2.5 hours later, after there was 8 cops walking around in circles, they decided to let me go.
Yeah. All right.
All right, my friend.
Thank you much.
And I only joke about that because, unfortunately, police officers are not used to people invoking their rights in a respectful manner when they can. Most people assume Carl, I thought I had to let him search my car. I didn't know that my kid left a Roman candle in the trunk. I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, I would if I'd known that was there, I wouldn't let him look in the trunk. Yeah, that's right, because you're now charged with a crime because you got a Roman candle in the trunk you didn't know was there, or your wife left her handgun under the seat. Dan, you're on the air.
I called you last week at the end of the show about the background checks. Did you find anything else about that as far as what the parameters are?
I have not completed that yet. And I don't know if anybody else in my office took a look at it or not. Shane, did anybody look at the background check question? Not sure. All right, let's get back. We'll get back to you on it, Dan.
Well, as far as
go ahead.
driving while suspended. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you could maybe still answer it.
Well, go ahead. Shoot.
If there's driving while suspended on there, bad checks, like how many bad checks before it becomes a misdemeanor offense?
Well, it would be graded as a misdemeanor at the time it happened.
Okay, there's not like after 3, then they're misdemeanors.
I don't think those escalate that way. I think that's based on the amount.
Okay.
But actually, I think all bad check charges actually are misdemeanors. I don't think there's a summary bad check.
I thought I had read something where, and I'm not. It was $300 or $600.
And I don't think there's a summary for that. That's what I'm trying to think. I think they're all misdemeanor bad check charges. Be a misdemeanor 3.
That's what it. I had read on the PA, the state portal.
Right.
After there was one thing, they always bounce it all around. There was one thing where after 3, if it was less than a certain amount, and I can't remember that, then they're considered misdemeanor. But then it was another thing that said per charge.
Yeah, I think a bad check charge always starts as a misdemeanor and goes up from there. So I think any bad check charge is going to be a misdemeanor.
How about the driving while suspended?
Driving suspended is a summary, can become a misdemeanor if you're a habitual offender or involves alcohol under certain circumstances.
And what would exactly define habitual then?
Habitual is the number. I believe right now, if you've got more than a couple, I'm trying to remember, 6 or more has mandatory jail time, but there's a habitual offender statute, and I couldn't remember. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the elements are in that. But again, it would show on your record as a misdemeanor. These are things that'll show on your record. I mean, unless you're planning to do this stuff, it is what it is.
Yeah, this isn't for me. I just have had knowledge of people working in the school system.
Right.
And you look up on that unified portal thing, and it's all right there.
Yeah.
And if the law is, it's a list.
But I mean, it'll tell you what their convictions are. I mean, it'll tell you the grading of the offenses they were charged.
Right, which a list would be considered habitual, right?
Well, I don't. No, what I'm trying to say is you could have 100 of them and never been charged as a habitual offender.
Okay.
I mean, in other words, that's an enhancement that can be charged, but I don't know what the prerequisite is off the top of my head. And I don't see it charged that often.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
All right, have a good one.
540-0580. Sounds like somebody wants to cause a school district headaches. 540-0580. See you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. Frank, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. I'm calling concerning legal representation outside the state of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the estate in question is in Hawaii. My wife, daughter, and mother-in-law went on vacation, and 2 days into vacation, my wife and daughter went horseback riding.
Uh-huh.
There was an incident concerning the saddle. My daughter fell off the horse, and since then, she's missed about a month's work, and she's been in a hospital to have knee surgery. Now, we tried twice to get representation with attorneys in Hawaii, but both times after saying they would take the case for about a month, they came back and said that they were either too busy or they couldn't take the case. They said we definitely had a case, but they weren't able to represent us. So the question is, what do you do in a case like this? And the other problem is that due to the way things transpired with the attorneys, it's been about 6 months now, and, we're that far down the road, and my daughter is out quite a bit of money for something which the people that ran the horse riding camp already admit that they were at fault, that they were negligent. So how does someone in Pennsylvania pursue a legal matter in Hawaii?
Well, I mean, you got to find somebody there that's willing to take the case, I guess, which is the trick, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not understanding why nobody likes the case. And I'm wondering if they're telling you the truth when they say you have a case, because if you have a case, I can't imagine why they're not forwarding it.
Okay.
With that in mind, I mean, what we could do off the air is find you somebody out there and try to refer it out there and see what happens.
Okay. I was just wondering if it was simply a matter that over such a distance that the attorneys didn't want to work directly with, let's say, the civilian, that they would rather work with a Pennsylvania attorney. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, they may, and that's something like we've done that in the past where we find an out-of-state attorney. A lot of times it comes up with our Franklin County practice with people who get injured in Maryland.
Okay, then what I'd like to do is contact your office and pursue the matter.
Yeah, Frank would be happy to sit down with you and basically work your end and then engage somebody out there to handle it.
Okay. All right, Carl. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Yeah, I mean, that's always tricky sometimes with the out-of-state stuff, but if the case is good, I'm not sure why nobody wants it. But then again, I've had a few times over my years where people wandered in my office and said 4 lawyers have turned this case down, and $100,000 later, I'm wondering why anybody ever would turn it down. 540-0580. Terry, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing? I wanted to know, could a felony be expunged from a record?
A felony can only be expunged under Pennsylvania law if you are acquitted of it, or the case is dismissed, or it's overturned on appeal. But if you're convicted or you plead guilty and it becomes a final conviction, it can never be expunged unless it's pardoned.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then I understand where I'm at.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. That's such a common question. We have so many people out there with criminal records who regret having taken the criminal record. If you're innocent, you think you might be innocent, you probably didn't do it, or even if you did it, before you plead guilty, you really have to consider the long-term consequence of that criminal record. And if you have a lawyer and they haven't sat down, you look them in the eye and say, hey, what's going to happen to me if I plead guilty and take this felony? What's going to happen to me if I plead guilty and take this misdemeanor? What's going to happen to me if I plead guilty and take this summary? Oh, you're going to get ARD. Don't worry about ARD. Nobody will know about it. Well, okay, technically it's going to be on your driver's record for 10 years and everybody will know about it. But point is, you got to make sure you fully understand what you're getting into. And I really feel like a lot of people, my other favorite one is, I pled guilty to a DUI, and now they tell me I can't own guns anymore. Just the other day, I massaged a DUI charge to make it so that the guy could still own guns. So point is, you got to pay very careful attention to what you're pleading to and what the long-term consequences are. And you cannot get a conviction expunged in Pennsylvania, no matter what anybody tells you. It doesn't fall off your record after 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. So if you think your son should just not hire a lawyer, go into court and plead guilty at 18 years of age, just remember that whatever he or she pleads guilty to, or if I guess it's your daughter instead of your son, it's there for life. So keep that in the back of your head, guys. 540-0580. Gene, you're on the air.
Hi. My niece in September was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and because of her brain cancer, she was not able to hold a job for some time or get anything that was decent because her faculties were kind of diminished.
Mm-hmm.
And so her bills got very far behind. And when she was diagnosed, she moved in with us, and she hadn't paid her mortgage for quite some time, was trying to sell the house, but the house isn't going to sell. It has multiple problems that were there since she moved in, including a mold problem that was making her sick, and she never wants to go back to that house.
Right.
So she's just planning on abandoning the house. But at the current time, when she moved in with us, she had insurance, and she thought, well, if I'm not living there, I'm not going to have insurance. And she really is at the point where it's like, I don't care about my stuff, I don't care about my house. When I get my stuff, that's fine. And she just said, I'm not paying my insurance anymore. Her mortgage company is telling her that she needs to have insurance, or they're going to purchase insurance for her, which I'm assuming that they're going to, eventually ask for reimbursement for that. I'm wondering if that is something that is legal for them to do.
Yeah, in the original mortgage,
I believe so.
You're going to find language that says you have a duty to insure it, and if you don't insure it, they can insure it, and you're going to have to pay for it if they do.
Right. Okay.
Because a mortgage is securing their interest in the property.
Mm-hmm.
And if the property burns down, their interest isn't going to be worth anything.
Exactly. Okay. Now, she would declare bankruptcy. Would all that kind of stuff be taken care of in the bankruptcy?
Generally, if she declared bankruptcy and she wasn't going to pay on the mortgage anymore, we would probably hand the deed over to the bank, and they would own the property, and she'd be done with it.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So, but what about is like that? If the insurance company that
somebody's going to have insurance on the place, and if the bank gets the insurance, that may become one of the debts that's subject to the bankruptcy.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So probably the best route for her to go would be bankruptcy at this point, then.
I'm not sure. I don't know her whole financial situation.
Right.
It's not unusual for people who have major medical crises because. By the way, I just want to tell you, it's a funny thing. You hear in the news periodically they'll talk about all the deadbeats going bankrupt and how the business taking a hit. But the number 2 causes of bankruptcy are besides divorce is the other single largest cause of bankruptcies is medical crises.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
All right. Yep.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. 540-0580. William, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Under what circumstances can a private citizen make a citizen's arrest?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the short answer is if you see a felony in progress, you certainly have the power to detain the person and arrest them. Misdemeanor in progress, I don't know. You have the right to use force or restraint to protect property or other people. And I guess if you legitimately think that if you let the guy go, he's going to hurt somebody, you could certainly hold him until the police get there. But there's no power to simply arrest and charge somebody, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You can only really detain them until the actual authority gets there.
And what if the person you're detaining happens to be a public official?
Well, you're running a lot of risks there.
Wow. Boy, the law's complicated in this country.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, the law is simple. Call the police and don't, unless the guy's got a gun and you're afraid he's going to shoot somebody or he's doing something that really, but what are the actual scenarios that require a citizen's arrest? Now, let's work ourselves through this for a second. I'm at the Walmart and I see the guy running out the door carrying some merchandise with a clerk chasing him. Why do I need to get involved at that juncture?
Well, it would be in your best interest to get involved because he might hurt somebody else later.
Right, like the Sandman and Peter Parker. I understand, but these things happen.
That's the kind of thing, yeah.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Carl.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody else read enough comic books to know that storyline. I'm sure Shane has. Oh, yeah, he's nodding. Of course, the movies are out now, so you kids all know. Brian, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
What's going on?
I had a question. I was having a problem with my bank. It's actually a credit union. My mother had passed away about 3 years ago. She was very ill for a long time. My sister was the power of attorney, and I guess her executor or whatever. And I had not been in contact with my mother or my sister for quite some time. There really wasn't a relationship there. Well, I'm married and I recently bought a house, and in the process of getting a mortgage and stuff like that, I went in and they gave me a piece of paper that I had an account. Me and my mother had an account together, and it turned out it was an account I had from, like, when I was 16 years old. When I got my first job, she opened up an account for me where she had to be the co-signer because I was under 18. And we had never closed it down. And I asked, well, I would like take the name off that account and explain the situation. They said, well, you can't. You have to have the executor come in with all this paperwork and stuff like that. I explained to them that I don't have a relationship with the executor and that there's no way that I've seen her at mom's funeral, and after that, that's it. There's not a relationship there, and that's unfortunate, but nevertheless, that's the way it is. And I don't want my name in an account. And then they said that, well, they told me that, well, I guess maybe my mom had owed some, or something was bad in her account or whatever they said to me. So, and then she tried to say, well, maybe you're, looks like you might be accountable for it because you are a co-signer. I said, yeah, but I wasn't a co-borrower of anything my mother ever had or anything like that. I can give you my ID to prove who I am, but as far as that other information, it's not available to me. It's not going to be available to me. And I don't think, and I guess they said whenever my sister had become the executor of my mom's accounts or the power of attorney, whatever, that made her in charge of everything my mom's name was attached to.
Correct.
I was just wondering if they were very adamant about you cannot take your name off this unless she comes in and does this and does this.
So your name's still on this account?
Yeah, my name is still on the account, and they're telling me that I have no power to take it off unless I can track down my sister wherever she would be, which I have no idea, and then convince her somehow to walk into the bank and say, yes, I'm responsible for all these things, and I want it's okay for him, and produces all this paperwork, which will never happen. Interesting.
Well, I mean, that may be their internal policy, but I'm not sure you couldn't force that issue. I'd like to a little bit know about it. Is the account overdrawn or something?
Say that again?
Is the account overdrawn?
No, it was what it was an account that I had when I was 16, and my mom opened it for me. I'm not mad with anything. I've been there since I've been a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, interesting.
And I guess now my mom had other accounts. Now, whatever her personal business was whether she was laid in or I have no idea because, like I said, there would be no way I would know.
Brian, I would suggest at this point a letter from a lawyer to the bank and see where that goes and get a more formal explanation from them. I got to go to break here, but that's my remedy.
All right.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
540-0580. See you guys after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions, 540-0580. And, of course, if you didn't get through today or you need us for real, go to RomingerLaw.com or call 717-241-6070, 717-241-6070. Go to RomingerLaw.com. Call the show here every Saturday from 1 to 3. It's 540-0580. Kelly, you're on the air.
Yes, hi. I spoke with you earlier when I first started this process. My husband and I own a lawn care business.
Okay.
And we had somebody not pay bills, so we went and got a judgment, and he ended up filing bankruptcy.
Right.
So I went to the creditors meeting, and I wanted to fight it because I believed the information he provided was false. So I asked for more information. They never gave it to me. So I actually went to the U.S. Trustee's office.
Uh-huh.
They found where it was enough of an issue where they thought it was worthwhile to investigate. So the U.S. Trustee's office is investigating. They asked for information. I asked for an extension to fight the dischargeability.
Right.
To file that complaint. So we went through my extension, got that approved. U.S. Trustee asked for an extension. They got that approved. But the debtor didn't provide the information. So I asked for another extension because the U.S. Trustee said to do that because he was going to do that again.
Right.
What is the normal? Is it usually 2 extensions? And then what happens if this debtor, because he said normally the attorney, the counsel for this debtor, gives him the information he's looking for if he's doing an investigation. But he said, the only thing is his client might not be complying. So what happens if he just doesn't give information? I mean,
at a certain point, the trustee can discharge, so not recommend the bankruptcy and not recommend a discharge of the debt if they don't feel the debtor is giving fair information. And ultimately, it's a big deal to give fraudulent information to a bankruptcy court because that can get you in a lot of trouble.
Right. So because I just don't think this individual is going to give them any information, because the information he put down is false. So there's nothing he can show, So if he just doesn't give the information that the U.S. trustee after the second extension. I mean, how many extensions do you normally go through?
Well, I don't know, because here's why I say this. In my somewhat limited bankruptcy experience, I haven't done a million of these, but I've done a few. Nobody ever shows up at the creditors meeting, and when they do, usually things are pretty handily resolved.
Right.
So I don't know how many extensions they're going to give at this point, but I can't imagine it would go on ad infinitum.
Right. Okay. But if he doesn't give it, then more likely than not, they would just discharge it because of noncompliance.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Dismiss it, basically.
Okay.
And then there won't be a discharge of any debts. Although it doesn't really help you because it doesn't make him any richer either, right?
It doesn't, but at least we were really hoping they would change it from a 7 to a 13, so we would be on some type of
payment
because otherwise,
schedule.
because we had the sheriff. We actually was going to have the sheriff go to his house, and that's when he went for the bankruptcy. But it was for a ridiculous amount of money that he, you always feel that people can pay, and who knows. But to the extent of we would pursue it again. I just didn't want to give up because I thought it was false information.
I don't blame you.
Okay, so there's no magic number to
no magic number. No, I mean you certainly could make your opposition known to continued extensions.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but that's pretty much. There's no magic number. I mean, a million extensions might be reasonable if you had a good reason for every single one of them. Dennis, you're on the air, Dennis.
Hi, Mrs. Rominger. I had contacted your office a few months back about an age discrimination, and I was not financially secure there in order to hire anybody, but I am now.
Okay.
I was just wondering if there was any time limit that I had.
Well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is I wouldn't know without getting all the facts from you. So why don't you, if you call back in on Monday, 241-6070, get you back with the lawyer, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
But I wouldn't wait any longer than Monday.
Monday. Okay, I appreciate that, and I will contact your office.
All right, Dennis, thanks.
Thank you.
Dave, you're on the air with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, brother. Hey, my mother had received some bonds in cash from her brother from an estate he had passed, and she got the cash, put it into the bank. That's not a problem. But the bonds, right now my mom's she's in her 80s, and she's going through a state where she's got partial memory loss. She doesn't know who my father is and things like that, and she doesn't remember where she placed these bonds. As far as my father knows, she never did cash them. She just put them somewhere, and I've been looking through the house, couldn't find them. So I called the trustee, which is blah, blah, blah bank, and they told me that I could go online and, put these numbers in, and I had tried my mom's Social Security number, and it says it's an invalid Social Security number. Is there any other ways tracing these bonds?
Oh, boy, I don't know.
Because, it says I can apply for lost bonds, but they want to know, who's social's on it. And I'm like, I don't know. And this trustee from the bank is not being helpful at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's...
And, of course, you're assuming she still has them, but there's a chance she might not as well.
Well, I know my parents aren't that well off, and it was a good sum of money, so I'm sure I would have saw some improvement or some purchase of something, you know what I mean, if they would have bought something.
Right.
But as far as you know, other than working with this trustee and trying to figure out whose social is, you don't know anything about that, then, huh?
Off the top of my head now, I know we've found old stocks and we've recovered them, but and usually there's some services out there that do that. That's why I'm wondering about the one you were referred to.
Well, like I said, the trustee, it was a common name, a pretty big franchise around the area here. I don't want to say the name on there.
Right, no, I understand that.
And, like I said, she said, about going online, and, I tried going through the revenue service, and then I tried to go through the state treasury and all that, and you get in there, and it asks for your name and the bond numbers, and then it asks for a Social Security number, and, other than my mother's, heck, I guess it would have had to be her dead brother's, but I can't get to that. She doesn't know it.
Right. Well, the Social Security number wouldn't be that hard to find. We have some databasing services that we get access to that you can dig that stuff up.
Okay, so I would actually legally probably have to go through a lawyer because of the HIP Act and all that, right?
Yeah, or a private investigator, either one.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go through the government for that. All right, my friend.
All right,
appreciate
Dave.
it. Brother,
Good luck.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I think that's the best answer I can give him. Chip, you're on the air. Chip.
Yeah. How you doing, Carl?
Good, man. Good.
Hey. Okay, my question is, do you ever see people setting up, as far as with wills, joint executors and joint power of attorneys, like, with two of the children?
Yeah, in fact, I sometimes see people putting all the kids on, even if there's 3 or 4. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people pick one of the kids because they have an obvious affinity to do it, and they live close, or that's their profession, whatever.
Yeah. See, with my 2 kids, they're in their mid-30s, and they both are kind of coming from different places, and I think both of them combined together would make a better decision than either one of them separate.
Yeah, and I sometimes tell people, if you don't want to send the message to your kids that you think one's smarter than the other, you can put them all on there, all 3 or all 2 or all 9, and let them sort out the division of labor. Sometimes the kids all look at each other and go, I don't want it. And one kid goes, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Other times
I think that would be better than just having one or the other kind of more dictating what was going on.
Yeah, and one's free to stand down, however. I always remember that just because I name you as the executor of my will doesn't mean you have to do it.
How about with the power of attorney?
Power of attorney means you don't have to exercise it either, but you can do joint powers of attorney. Now, usually with power of attorney, here's the problem. You usually would make them alternative powers of attorney rather than joint.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine a scenario where then each one of them needs to be there to make the decision. And that defeats the whole purpose of a power of attorney, which is to allow somebody else to call the shots when the time comes that it needs to be done, and sometimes on a rapid basis.
Yeah, so it probably would be detrimental, even if somebody would stand down on power of attorney.
I would just have, you could do 2 powers of attorney. You could do one for each kid. That way they both could act for you. But again, it's how much you trust them, too.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of coming from different places religiously and philosophically, too.
Yeah. No, so you can set up a fight.
And the sad thing is, neither one of them kind of coincide with mine.
Well, and that's where if you want to talk about a living will and all those sorts of things, you can control that precisely in the document.
Yeah, with the living will. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no problem, because what I was going to do, and looking at it, and I won't say who my attorney is, but I was going to set it up my will with joint executor with my 2 kids, and joint power of attorney, and then actually leave anything other than what they get for the executor fee or whatever,
right,
for the 5 grandkids equally.
Yeah, you could do that, because
they made. But I don't know. I was kind of stonewalled by my attorney, and he said, "Well, not a lot of people do that," and it was just kind of, and he kind of pushed me toward just the old standard. Pick one for the executor and power of attorney and divide it equally between the 2, and that's it. Well, he probably had a form letter that he made a lot of money doing it that way.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that wouldn't be that hard to write a will that would take care of the grandkids but skip the kids. That's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, and they've already forged their way in their life, and I just want to make sure with the way things are, it's going to be a lot tougher for the grandkids than it was for them.
Well, Chip, if there's anything I can do, let me know. I'm going to take the next caller here because I got to go to break.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, welcome back here. A little bit more time here to answer your legal questions. Of course, if we run out of time and you can't get them answered here on the air, go to RomingerLaw.com. Get hold of us during the week. Also go to weekendappointment.com to download the free will kit. And as I've said before, for those of you who don't have internet access, if you want to get a hold of us, it's office number 717-241-6070. 241-6070. Bill, you're on the air.
Hello.
What's going on?
Hi, Carl. This is Bill. Hey, I've been inundated lately with unwanted phone calls from, I want to mention one, ADT, who I think is a security service or whatever.
Trying to sell you something.
7 calls in 2 or 2.5 weeks. And cardholder services, another one that keeps calling and calling. I'm on the don't call list till 2014, and I filed complaints with the Consumer Protection Bureau of the State Attorney General's office.
Mm-hmm.
Any other options?
I don't really think so, except maybe change your number.
No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to let some bozo force me to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But do I have any legal recourse?
Well, I mean, if you're on the do not call and you've asked him not to call you, you may be able to sue him under that act, yeah.
Oh, okay. But here again, I got to invest money, hire a
well,
lawyer, and go to court and sue them.
Although I believe you can get attorney's fees on those as well. So.
Oh, okay. So in other words, how about my time?
Well, you're not going to get compensated for your time per se, although I think you do get a per se violation value, which, I don't know, if I get a couple $100 for an unwanted phone call, I might call it even.
I don't know about that, but it just ticks me off that somebody like that can force me to spend money to have them not to bother me. It almost sounds like a...
Well, I mean, that's the junk fax problem. We still get... junk faxes have been actionable from long before there was a do not call list.
Okay.
And at least twice a day I get a friggin' junk fax on my fax machine at work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these days, it's almost not as annoying because it's just a big fancy photocopier / laser printer / fax machine, and the cost per copy is like half a cent or less.
Right, but it's still ink and it's still paper.
But back in the day when you only had so much film,
right,
it really drove you nuts. But yeah, I mean, what do you do? Because and they all say, attention Human Resource Department, free crews, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's a problem.
Well, I've even told them to the point that I suggested they have an unnatural relationship with themselves, but that doesn't seem to stop them.
Here's the other thing. There's a whole series, I think Mad Magazine had, which you probably enjoy. It's a whole series of things you can say to these people on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Involving the guy they're asking for is dead, and you can go into all the gory details of how they died, or the guy if you got somebody who can act along with you, they've got a whole domestic fight you guys can do in the background.
Okay.
all kinds of fun stuff.
All right. Well, these people sound like they're not Americans. They don't speak a fluent English.
Right.
And when the first words out of their mouth is "You've been selected," you know what's coming.
Right. You've been selected. Well, it's just like the PennDOT calls you a customer.
Oh.
You're a winner.
Well, thought I'd give it a shot.
All right, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
We might want to look at go online and Google the do not call list.
Well, as I say, I've done that. I've been put on that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, and enforcing it, and just take a look at what your remedies are.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
540-0580. Joe, you're on the air. Hey, Joe.
Yes. I applied for a gun permit a year or so ago, and I was turned down. And they said if I didn't, wanted a reason to, correspond with them through a letter, and I wrote a letter to them and asked them why I was turned down. It was state police. It was, and they said I had been arrested 40 years ago for fighting, and I'd been got 3 days in jail and was fined $50. And they wrote me back and said the second time and said because it possibly had been a domestic dispute, and so I called a woman that was up at the state police headquarters, and she said, "Well, write me a letter saying that it wasn't a domestic dispute," and I did. And I wrote him a letter and stuff, and I never heard from him again. This was a year or so ago.
Okay.
And the longer it kind of was eating at me. I got a gun as a gift, and I just thought, well, I'll get a permit so I'll be legal to have it, And they turned me down. That was the only time I had ever been in any trouble of any kind. And stuff, and it's just kind of eating at me. And I wondered if I had any recourse for it.
Yeah, you do. I mean, we can ultimately follow up. What you usually do, the state police are very good about resolving those informally.
Yeah.
But I have taken the position when they do that, because I've had this exact case, I take the position of, no, you have to prove it's a crime of domestic violence. We don't have to prove that it's not.
Yes.
But you have the right to review their decision to the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
But there's only a certain time period to do that, so you'd have to re-trigger it. But I would, I would say you need to just make sure that that's clarified, so you aren't having that showing up on your background.
Yeah, but I had 3 times I had corresponded with them, and they turned me down, and then they just finally quit doing anything. And I just wondered if I had any recourse or if
your recourse is to get them to say that you have a criminal background and that you can't have a gun, and then appeal that to the Attorney General's office.
All right. But I need a lawyer to do that, or?
Well, let me tell you what. It's not simple, but you might be able to figure out how to do it on your own.
Yeah, well, listen, I'd have no trouble with that, because, I mean, it's kind of eating at me pretty good now. And I'd have no trouble spending some money there.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't be that complicated. Maybe you're able to be resolved with a few letters with the state police from the front end.
All right.
All right, Joe.
All right, thank you.
540-0580. Keep answering your legal questions here. It's Carl Rominger answering them. Charles, you're on the air.
Hello?
Charles.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I have a small claims court question.
Yeah, go ahead. Oops, I think I accidentally busted him off the phone there. Oops, don't play with the buttons. When you play with the we wonder what a small claims court. If you can call back, you got a second here, brother. I didn't mean to drop you. I did want to call everybody's attention to the fact that we will be live in Lancaster next week, 1000 North Prince Street, so mark your calendars accordingly. I'm also planning on swinging over to the Old World Cigars at about 3:30 or so. So if you're a cigar smoker and you don't have time to stop by at the office, 1000 North Prince Street for the live broadcast, but you do want to smoke a cigar, swing down to 1000 North Prince for the live broadcast, but then Old World probably around 3:30, I'm guessing. I guess we're running out of time. I see people are calling. Guys, 241-6070 is the office number. 241-6070 is the office number. RomingerLaw.com. Happy to help you throughout the week. Remember, we have offices in Lancaster, Harrisburg, Carlisle. Pretty much we can get to you anywhere you can hear this signal.